Every NFL player, whether it be Aaron Rodgers or the third-string offensive tackle on the worst team in the league, has expectations heading into each and every NFL season. The expectations players are to perform at are reflected by how they are compensated financially. Aaron Rodgers is one of the best quarterbacks and players in the league, maybe even the best quarterback in the league, and is paid over $30 million per year to be that guy. However, a lot of young players are often underpaid, and while NFL players earn a lot of money compared to the average Joe, they usually don't think they've quote-unquote got the bag until they get their second contract. In today's video, we're going to discuss several players that have earned money this year through their performance, and that those players will soon be highly compensated. Now before we start, I want to say I realize young players are often undercompensated because that's how the collective bargaining agreement, CBA for short, is, and I'm not saying or acting like I just noticed Justin Jefferson is paid a fraction of what Davante Adams is or anything like that. Now we reached 15,000 subscribers a few days ago, and I truly cannot thank you guys enough for that, and please like the video and subscribe if you are not already, as all support is very much appreciated. Now let's begin. We start today's video with Falcons receiver Calvin Ridley. Heading into 2020, there was legitimate questions surrounding Calvin about whether he would ever be a number one receiver or if he would be the Scottie Pippen to Julio's MJ. That was more than answered this year, as it seemed like Julio rarely played and Calvin was relied on more and more by former MVP quarterback Matt Ryan. Through 13 games, and as I record this Christmas night, Calvin has 77 catches for nearly 1,200 yards and 9 touchdowns, which is absurd production. The pace he is on now, if he were to continue this over a 16-game season, would translate to a 95, 14, 67, and 11 stat line, which is more than Pro Bowl worthy. I do feel bad for Calvin that he didn't get the nod this year, as if there were ever a year where the Pro Bowl mattered for legacy and for contract extension purposes, it was this year with no alternates or anything like that. Having a near 1,400-yard receiver, though, is nothing to scoff at for the Falcons, and with Julio getting up there in age and Calvin stepping into the true number one role, this was a make-or-break year for Ridley. If he had a 50-catch, 600-yard year, then the Falcons may have offered him a second contract, but nothing more than a third receiver role money-wise. But a 7 100-yard game season will provide Ridley and his family a ton of money for hopefully the rest of their lives. Calvin stepped up when the bell was called and earned himself millions in 2020. He was a first-round pick in 2018, and the Falcons will, without hesitation, pick up his fifth-year option this offseason. And what will follow this is a fat contract extension for Calvin Ridley. Next is a player that has completely flew under the radar this year, and that's Patriots corner J.C. Jackson. Heading into 2020, not a lot of people outside of New England would have known who J.C. was or even what position he played. However, very quietly, J.C. is second in the NFL, behind only fellow AFC Easter Xavier Howard in interceptions with 8. When the Patriots have made headlines this year, they haven't been because of their corner being near the top of the league in interceptions. It's been because they have the most losses in a season since 2002 or whatever year it was, or because Cam Newton has been terrible. They certainly aren't a laughing stock or anything like that of the NFL, but in a way they have become irrelevant because they are certainly not the team they were a year ago. None of that matters to J.C. Jackson though, as he is a former undrafted corner in the final year of his contract. He went undrafted back in 2018 out of Maryland and signed a 3-year, $1.72 million contract, and to say he will make that more than that in the next few years would be underplayed for how well he has this year. In a league where we have quarterbacks like Patrick Mahomes, Russell Wilson, and Aaron Rodgers, there are never enough corners on a team, and there's never enough good ones at that. And just because the national media doesn't like to highlight how good he has been, does not mean other NFL teams and other NFL front offices have not taken note of his play, because they most certainly have. JC was widely regarded as one of the biggest Pro Bowl snubs this year, along with Calvin Ridley, but the good news for both of these guys is they will soon have the last laugh. And with that last laugh for JC and Calvin both, will come a bag of more than $10 million per year. Next is defensive end Trey Hendrickson of the New Orleans Saints. Heading into 2020, not a lot of people knew who he was or even what position he played. He was a 2017 third-round pick who had just 6.5 sacks in 3 years and looked to be a career rotational pass rusher. And there's nothing wrong with those types of players, as believe it or not, they play a bigger role than people think. A perfect example would be the 2017 Eagles with how many pass rushers they had on their defense. They constantly rotated them to the point where they were always fresh, working on either exhausted offensive linemen or at worst, not fresh offensive linemen. So what I'm getting at is rotational pass rushers like Trey Hendrickson was going into this year, and players like that always have a place in the NFL. No team will turn down a 27-year-old player that can produce 4 to 6 sacks per year and get after the quarterback, just like no team will turn down a solid third corner. But Trey completely changed the narrative surrounding his career in 2020. We all know how good Cameron Jordan is, as he is now a 6-time Pro Bowler and could very well be on his way to a Hall of Fame career in his own rights. But what we did not know was who was the defensive end opposite of him. The general consensus was Marcus Davenport, who the Saints spent a first-round pick on back in 2018 and even traded a future first-round pick for him. 3 years in, and Davenport looks like a bust as he has 12 career sacks, with Trey playing over him this year. Now Trey, on the other hand, has 12.5 sacks this year alone, and he couldn't have timed it any better. It is a contract year for him, and when players perform in a contract year, especially at the position he's at, they will get paid. A pass rusher is arguably the second most important position on a football field, and at worst case, the third most important. If you don't believe that, then view how NFL franchises select number 1 overall picks. The last receiver selected number 1 was Keyshawn Johnson, which was in the 1990s. Ever since that pick, it has been either a quarterback, offensive tackle, or a pass rusher. And because of the positional value, Trey Hendrickson has set himself perfectly to get paid this offseason. Unfortunately for Saints fans, it may be in another city. The Saints are in one of the worst cap space situations in the entire NFL, which means they probably will not have enough for Trey. Now, there will be concern whether he is a one-year wonder, and he will probably get overpaid by somebody because remember, it only takes one team to overpay. And surely with the emphasis on getting to the quarterback, someone will. NFL teams will never have enough pass rushers, and due to his 12.5 sacks and counting, in a contract year, he will soon be compensated for that. And the final player in today's video is the player on the thumbnail, which of course is Josh Allen of the Bills. Josh has had an interesting career due to really all the highs and the lows. In 2018, there was a lot of talks of how was this guy ever a first-round pick, or how was he selected this high. He had a horrendous passer rating of just 67.8 and a horrible completion percentage of 52.8. Now, for the player Allen is, and how good he has been, to say he's come a long way would really be a discredit to him. He went from one of the worst starting quarterbacks a few years ago to a legitimate MVP candidate. Allen in 2018 threw more interceptions than he did touchdowns, and while he had some exciting moments, like hurdling over Anthony Barr for a key third down conversion for example, I wouldn't say people thought he was the future or the player he is at this moment in time. And the same really goes for 2019 too. He improved a lot between his rookie year and his second year, as he doubled his touchdown passes from 10 to 20, and improved his completion percentage by 6%. He wasn't looking like the next Patrick Mahomes by any means, but he was starting to look like a good player. He threw for 1,000 more yards, going from 2,000 to 3,000, and the Bills made the playoffs for the first time in the Josh Allen era. And no, the 2017 appearance against Jacksonville was not in the Josh Allen era. Anyways, the playoff game they had against the Texans last year was incredible, as it went to overtime, and Josh Allen was lateraling the ball to his teammates, and the nation really got to see how fun he is to watch as a quarterback. Also, credit to the Bills for putting solid weapons around him, and I really cannot say that enough. The Bills have been looked at as a great model for how to build around a young quarterback, while another team in their division, the New York Jets, could not have helped Sam Darnold out any less. But the cherry on top for the Bills in terms of helping Allen out came this offseason when they acquired wide receiver Stefon Diggs from the Vikings. So with everything coming together for Allen to be in a perfect situation entering 2020, or as close to perfect as you can get, it was time to deliver and take the next step, which he most certainly has. I'm recording this Saturday morning before they play the Patriots on Monday night, but Josh Allen has already thrown for 1,000 more yards in 2020 than he did in 2019 with 2 games left to play. He has thrown for 1.5 times the amount of touchdowns he did from last year to this year, going from 20 to 30. Of course, that is with more games on the schedule, so it'll only increase. But perhaps what is most impressive about Allen doing all of this is his rushing numbers haven't considerably dipped touchdowns-wise. He has 8 on the ground this year, which means he has 38 total touchdowns in a year where the Bills won the division for the first time since the 1990s. Due to all of this, Josh Allen has earned himself tens of millions of dollars. 3 years is usually the time it takes to figure out a draft class, whether players are busts, average, or stars, and without a doubt Josh Allen is a star. His completion percentage went from 58 in 2019 to nearly 70% in 2020. He ranks 6th in the league in that category, and if you told someone that he would, entering the year, be 6th a day after Christmas in completion percentage, well, they wouldn't have believed you, and rightfully so. How Josh Allen has been perceived through the first few years of his career and how he has grown is nothing short of spectacular. The contract extension that would have proposed by the Bills a few months ago certainly wouldn't be like the one that will be proposed by them now. It will be well over $100 million, and rightfully so. And because of the year Allen has had in 2020, he has earned himself millions of dollars. And with that being said, that's all I have for today's video. I hope you enjoyed. If you did and are still watching, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. I cannot thank you guys enough for the support, and I will see you guys Monday for a Week 16 recap. Have a great rest of your weekend. Love you guys. Deuces. Peace.